All right, I am in my kitchen for two reasons. One reason because that's where the Ghostbusters figures are, and two because going on 3 years ago, the very first review I ever shot solo for this channel was Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I shot it in my kitchen, not this kitchen, the kitchen at my old apartment, and I really liked that movie. But more so, I was really moved by people's outpouring of support and checking in on me back then, stuff like that. And I remember just bawling my eyes out at that point in that review. And then obviously it was posted on Reddit and the Cinemassacre Truth, and they're like, what a fucking loser, haha! He probably should have killed himself, ha ha ha. And look how well his therapy's going. Joke's on you. I had just started therapy at that point. Yeah, so and then what it came down to was the people who I used to work with were like, you made us look really, really bad. Take this down, and then it got flagged and taken down. So the Ghostbusters Afterlife review is gone. But it was the first thing I shot solo, and I shot it in my old kitchen. So I figured we got a new Ghostbusters movie. I may as well shoot it in my new kitchen. So here we are after that preamble. So I saw Ghostbusters Frozen Kingdom tonight. I was obviously excited about this movie. I've fucking loved the Ghostbusters my entire life. From the first movie, I think with the second movie, um, you know, I don't have a lot of good things to say about my time on hack movies. But I think our Ghostbusters 2 review is the best review that's ever been done on that movie. So I give him full credit for that. Like that was a great fucking review, and he was very very good in that one. And that was kind of when we figured out like, oh yeah, we got good chemistry. Like, we bounce well off each other. And that I think that was like the secret sauce for a while for that channel. So whenever I think of Ghostbusters 2, I do think about one of my positive memories about that time was that review. And I think I said all I had to say about Ghostbusters 2. I grew up, I love the cartoon. I had all the Now comics and obviously the action figures and the firehouse and all that kind of stuff. So uh, Ghostbusters has always been a part of my life. Playing Ghostbusters when we were kids, and I don't know, it's always just been a thing. So I going into this one, coming off of the last one, which I thought the last one was a perfect balance of nostalgia and heart, and reintroducing the concept of ghost busting to a new audience. But it's the internet, and everybody's got to be a shitty fucking cunt hole. So people were just angry about it just to be angry about it. And I've watched it a few times since then, and you know what? I don't see. I really don't see the argument that some people made about that movie. I really, obviously nothing will ever touch the first movie, but I thought Afterlife was a lot better than Ghostbusters 2, and it was fucking light years ahead of 2016 Ghostbusters. Um, Same thing with this one now. I went into, because I don't know if people know, I'm not at the theater anymore. I was let go on Monday on Tuesday from the theater. Um, I'd been butting heads with the owner for a while, and I'd found a part-time job. Anyway, right now, and I'm been interviewing like crazy for other jobs. And I also have been dealing with I got a non-cancer diagnosis, but I'm still undergoing quite a bit of tests. I have had cameras down my throat, in my pee hole, given all kinds of blood, ultrasounds, fingers in the butt, all that kind of stuff. I have all kinds of medical problems that I've been dealing with. So, and back last at the beginning of the year, I had my hours cut and my health insurance cut. After 10 years, I've moved on from that company and done with movie theaters. I think I've had enough of that. I had a stake in one for a while, and it's run its course. I don't have a passion for it anymore. Um, I was doing it because it was you know, it was something I knew how to do pretty well, and I could get a paycheck. Elvira, can you please get down? Get down. Um, so yeah, so I was excited to see this. I was gonna watch it at that theater, not there anymore. Had to wait until tonight when I was done. But going into it, I had read all the reviews of people, their criticisms. What are you doing? Um, Everyone's criticisms of the movie, and this time I can honestly say yes, I do agree with these criticisms. There is quite a bit of this movie that does not work for me. With that said, I still really fucking liked it. We'll go into the things I didn't like first. It's far too busy. There's too many characters, too many plots, uh, and it feels like everyone kind of gets shortchanged. They market the marketing of it was bad as well. They gave you a false impression that like the winter frozen wonderland stuff was the course of the film. It's not till the very end. The main villain, while cool looking, is not really a you know a present threat in the movie. There was really no reason for Lucky to be there. Podcast they try to do something with. I get it. It's fine. Bill Murray is essentially a glorified cameo. McKenna Grace, I believe is her name, who plays Phoebe, is the strongest part of the entire movie. Even like Carrie Coons, as the mom, she has an arc, but like she's another one that you could have gone without. Paul Rudd's good in it. You know, his narrative arc flows, you know, and has a payoff. There is a lot of nostalgia in it. You know, I read a lot of reviews saying like the nostalgia well is dry, and in this one, I did get a chuckle at some of the things. They used the Ghostbusters cereal and toy Kenner toy ads in the beginning, and that made me smile. Um, but with that said, there's a lot of things that are repeated that they've already hit that beat in the last movie. And I didn't think you needed it at all. You know, Slimer's in it. Slimer does have a story function in the movie. You know, he has his little moment at the end. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work. It feels like there's beats that are missing, that would have solved a lot of my problems. One of the biggest issues with the movie is there's a subplot of you know, Walter Peck is the mayor of New York, and he's been trying to shut the Ghostbusters down since 1984. And they go after the Hell's Kitchen sewer dragon, and in doing so, they cause a lot of property damage. And they find out there's a 15-year-old girl with a with a particle accelerator hanging out the side of a car. So she gets sidelined, and in that getting sidelined, she kind of befriends this ghost of a 16-year-old girl who died in a tenement fire, and the ghost is trying to get back to her family, and she's stuck walking the earth and stuff like that. Uh, I'm fine with that storyline. People are like, "Oh, you got to slip in an LBGTQ thing." I was like, I don't think that's what that was at all. I think that Phoebe being a scientist was naturally bewitched by the concept of the ethereal plane. But yeah, okay, you could look at it as being like a 14-year-old girl and a 16-year-old girl, and there being a queer code. Fine. My biggest problem is that entire arc doesn't really work. I know why it's there. It's there because the script says it needs to be there. Um, the idea that she's the ghost is possessed by the ice, the ice giant demon basically. But how she comes about it uh, doesn't really work with the timeline, because when the ball that Gurok or Goro or whatever is stuck in, there's not really enough time for there to be like a I'm the leader. I'm able to possess ghosts basically. I need this girl because she has a connection. She can get us to the containment unit, which is buckling because it's been filled since 1984. Um, I feel like there needed to be another scene there to kind of better, you know, better understand the timeline as to the ghosts all being riled up by the awakening of the ball and, whispering to this girl ghost who doesn't talk like she died in the 1900s. Like, she's a little too modern for my taste as well. Um, there needed to be a scene there. You have because then you have like Phoebe like gets inside the machine that separates the object from the ghost, and she uses that to get separated from it so that she can uh, be on the same plane as this ghost, and that's when the ghost like possesses her to have a living form say the words so that the demon can be released. They could have done that in another way. They could have done that. I had a theory that the British guy who builds all their weapons and stuff like that was going to end up being possessed and releasing it. Uh, they should have gone that route. They should have gone that route and had Phoebe be the one possessed when she touches the ball or something like that, and that's what opens it up. And I think that you could have still narratively done that, and there could have been a side plot with the ghost because he needed her flame at the end and all that kind of stuff. I was like, all right, I saw that coming from a mile away. I just feel like that was super clunky, and they had to give her something to do. I understand, but I feel like you could have done it in a more simplistic way, which would have then reduced the need for another character and another subplot. Um, Patton Oswalt's only in the movie very, very briefly. But I do like with like the library below the library in New York. Yes, you go back to the New York Public Library, and yes, the original head of the library is there from the first movie. And we meet Patton Oswalt, who's like the folklorist. And yes, you see the whisper librarian ghosts and stuff like that. It's just there because we know it, but like between that, like the world below our world, and then a former aquarium is now Winston's like Agents of Shield style Ghostbusters laboratory where they're building new gear and working on old gear, and they have a new containment unit and stuff like that. All that stuff I thought was really fucking cool, and that really sets up a future of Ghostbuster stories where you can kind of expand things a little bit more. I really like Winston as like the Nick Fury character. I'm so happy for Ernie Hudson to kind of get that role now, a very meaty role too, because he was always sidelined, but he was always there carrying the proton pack, the Neutrono wand. He was always carrying that at conventions over the years. Met him so many times, and he looked good for his age, dude. And I also like what they did with Dan Aykroyd. Ray has much more to do in this movie. I kind of felt they did him dirty in the last one, and it didn't feel. They used a really bad take as well when he's on the phone with Phoebe when she's in the police station. He's like, he cleared us out. Like, that didn't sound like him in character. It sounded like a bad outtake that they used in the movie, like in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like, part time. I was like, that's the in Red Letter Media. That's the best take you got. Uh, Annie Potts has a little bit to do, not a lot. The Nazim, the Indian guy from the Eternals, he's very good in it, and I'd like to see far more of him. Um, his family's connected to the orb. His grandmother had just passed away, and she is a secret, and he brings this orb in to sell, because he's kind of a screw up, and he finds his path. Then we go into the idea of in the past in other generations there were figures like the Ghostbusters, and these were the Fire Masters, like the Keymaster. And I really liked his character. I really liked the scene. It was Lucky, Finn Wolfhard, and the British guy, and they go into the grandmother has like a secret room, and it's all made of like brass or something like that. and they're like, your grandmother had a sex dungeon. He's like, what? No, why would my grandmother have a sex dungeon? Like, would you see chains like this in a sex dungeon? And they're all like, yeah, that's exactly what you would see in a sex dungeon. And he's like, please stop talking about sex with my recently deceased grandma. I thought he was really good in it. Um, I don't know. I thought it was a lot funnier than the last one. Um, there's a great scene between Ray and Winston where they're talking about their golden years, and I thought that really worked. And that felt like these two actors are so connected to these characters that it felt like a continuation of the other Ghostbusters movies where Bill Murray was just playing Bill Murray, and that was a little bit of a bummer because when he shows up, you're just like, all right, it's just Bill Murray. I thought he worked better in the last one actually. Uh, I don't know what else. What else? I liked it a lot, but I did have a lot of problems with it. There's far too many like callbacks to there's far too many exposition drops of like, well, I was a teacher in Oklahoma, and oh, we were out in Oklahoma. They recap the first movie too many times, and then when they do the nostalgia bait thing in the beginning, where the newscast is about the history of the Ghostbusters, it feels like something from the Arrowverse. Like one of my biggest problems with this movie is it doesn't feel big enough. Like it's lacking the grit because like the last one was very Rust Belt based. And this one they move it back to New York, and New York looks great, and it's where the Ghostbusters belong. But it just feels flat. Um, and when you have that newscast thing, aside from just giving us exposition that we already know, but okay, I get it. It just felt like something you would have seen on the CW. It doesn't feel big enough. There's musical beats that are cues that feel like they're missing. Even the very first time the Ghostbusters logo comes up, like in the first movie, you have the screaming librarian. It moves in and it builds up. In this one, it just felt kind of flat. And there's a lot of this movie that feels very flat. There's a lot of this movie that just kind of happens because it has to happen. Like I said, I think that there needed to be extra scenes to kind of fill in these gaps of where these characters are. There needs to be more. There needed to be more of the big bad doing things outside of the Ghostbusters. Kind of like there was more of Gozer's threat. There was more of Vigo as a threat. They do canonize Ghostbusters too. That's a bigger part of it. They show. They talk about the Statue of Liberty debacle. Up in the attic where Slimer is, there's boxes of hot thermal mugs and balloons for the kids from Ghostbusters 2. They have a slime blower in it. They have mood slime in it. Um, but I really like. I was like, I just leaned, and again, my knee buckles, and I don't want to fall down on camera. I'm really in a lot of pain. But there is a great attention to detail to the firehouse. And going back to the animated series, this does feel more like an episode of the cartoon. There's a lot of fun ghosts in it. You have this possessor thing that gets inside a trash bag, and the trash bag's running up the steps and stuff like that, and it turns into the lion outside of the library. And there's a little puke monster and stuff like that. There's a lot of little fun creatures that I could see being toys back in the '80s series. I like the new alterations of the original score. That was a big thing about the Ghostbusters Afterlife was bringing back the Elmer Bernstein score because Ghostbusters 2 has one of the worst scores ever. It's like a romantic comedy. And then anytime I think of 2016, I think of Missy Elliott and Fallout Boy, the Answer the Call song, which is like you could fucking die of cringe. Um, so yeah, and there's like there should have been another scene of like Bill Murray at home watching the news and seeing this thing and being like, oh, I guess I got to go save the world. Like he needed another thing. There, you have him and Walter Peck facing off each other, and some random voice in the crowd calls him dickless. Like there wasn't a punch to things. Certain things just felt very flat. But I do like the idea of like for Ray and for Winston, like this is what they love. This Ghostbusters is their family, and then that plays over into the Spengler family as well, and accepting Gary Gruberson and all that kind of stuff. There was an emotional through line, not as deeply as the last one. But I do think this one was a lot funnier. It was just messier because now you have a world ending. I mean, the last one, I guess, Gozer would be a world ending event as well. I'm happy they didn't reuse the same villain again because I really thought they were going to try to bring Vigo into this or something. Um, I don't know. Not as good as the last one. Still better than Ghostbusters 2. I like that it expands the world, but there just felt like it felt flatter. It felt less focused. It felt like there was pieces missing, maybe to keep that the runtime down. Um, yeah. Other than that, though, like I genuinely laughed, and I once we get to that third act, you're in. You're like, all right, good. I like where this is going. I just feel like it just it needed another pass. I think it needed another draft to kind of shore things up a little bit more. And then the whole Flame Master thing I thought was fantastic. Uh, and I love seeing the original Ghostbusters back in uniform. I know that people are like, oh, the nostalgia well is dry. And it's like one of those things where it's like where somebody kicks at that meme where it's like, stop having fun. Like, I had fun with this one. It also felt more adult than the last one as well. A lot of people can, like, granted, you're not going to have ghost blowjobs in this one. But this one did feel more adult, more, more in line with 84, basically. It felt more adult than Ghostbusters 2. Uh, but yeah, all of the things I didn't like did not overshadow what I really did like. And when it was over and the Ghostbusters theme was playing, I had a big fucking smile on my face. And it's good to know that people who love this stuff are making these things now. And yeah, I'm happy to be back in my kitchen with my Ghostbusters figures behind me. And hopefully this one, I didn't cry in this one, so it won't get taken down and say I made anybody look bad. But no, don't believe all the reviews, man. Go see it for yourself. Especially if you're a fan of this stuff. Like as I was walking into the movie, because I closed at the mall and I walked over and I heard some guy come in. He's like, "That was worse than the Melissa McCarthy one." And I was watching it and I was like, "In what world?" Like I understand that like YouTube movie reviewers have to just make everybody like shitty assholes anymore, and no, there's no such thing as shades of gray anymore. Everything is hyperbole, and you're either ice cold or you're burning hot. And oh, good analogy for this movie. But I was just like, no, man. Like, again, the motif of this channel is I will go into something and I'll watch it and I'll try to find something about it that I liked. And for a lot of things in this that I did not like, it didn't take away from what I did like, which I really, really liked, and it made me laugh and it made me smile. And and I want to see how they expand this world now because now like the Ghostbusters are back in New York and we there's a whole operation going and and I want to see more of Ray and more of Winston and more of Gary Gruberson and Patton Oswald can be part of things now and the Flame Master can be part of things and maybe figure out a better reason why Lucky and Podcast are there, and and the mom and stuff like that. Although I liked some of the interplay with Phoebe and the mom. It felt real. If she felt like a teenager, and she's like a genius too. So it's got to be even harder, which is why I understand why she befriended the ghost girl. I just think that whole element didn't quite work. It was just essentially a MacGuffin to get us to where we needed to go with the main bad. But I think you could have handled that a lot better. There could have been other things possessed to kind of lead Phoebe down that road, which would then play into the idea that like, yeah, I am still a kid. And I think that would have worked a lot better. My theory would have worked a lot better if if instead of the British guy, Phoebe was possessed and destroyed all of their gear instead of the mayor confiscating it, because that felt like, because then it could have been more like, why Batman has to don the sonar suit in Batman Forever. And then the original team has to get back together because, they have to use all the original gear and stuff like that. But they didn't go that route. But regardless, I'm definitely going to see it again. I want to see it with some friends and see what they think of it. But, I really enjoyed it. I did. as a longtime Ghostbusters fan, it made me happy. I want one of those fucking traps, the popcorn bucket, but they're like $40, and I don't get paid until until next week. So I was like, I'm not getting a $40 popcorn bucket. So that's all, guys, from the kitchen. My review of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It did not leave me cold. Um, and this franchise, I could never let it go. Uh, yeah, a lot of things I would change. Um, Again, making it feel a little bit more whole, a little bit more textured, like the last one, like the first one. Um, uh, but beyond that, I had a good time with it, and that's in the end, that's really all that's important. Is do I feel I my $16 was well spent? I do indeed. And now that I need to find another job, I got to be tighter with my money. So that's saying something that this is definitely worth it. I just wish I didn't have to go by myself. Yeah, that's it, guys. Have a good one.